Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges, Buckner, Buckner,
Excused.
Coleman, Cutter, Danielson, Exum, Fields,
Excused.
Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Hinrichsen, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundeen, Marchman, Moreno, Mullica, Mullica,
Excused.
Pelton B, Pelton R, Priola, Rich, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Rodriguez,
Excused.
Simpson, Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Zenzinger, Buckner, Fields, Mr. President,
Here. The morning roll call is 33 present, 0 absent, 2 excused. We have a quorum. Will the good senator from Wheat Ridge please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Jaquez Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate Journal of Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. Senate Services.
March 23rd, 2023, correctly printed, Senate Bill 211, 212, and 213, correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bills 109, 188, 189, and 190, correctly re-revised, House Bill 1179.
Committee reports.
March 22nd, 2023, the Committee on Education. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 29 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1009 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 1191 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation and with a recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. March 22nd, 2023, the Committee on Transportation and Energy. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 186 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. House Bill 1022 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 1039 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations.
Message from the House.
March 22nd, 2023, Mr. President, the House has postponed indefinitely Senate Bill 41. The bill is returned herewith.
General orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Roberts will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1157, Representatives Joseph and Weinberg, Senators Exum and Gardner, concerning the Uniform and Regulated Child Custody Transfer Act. House Bill 1151, Representatives Woodward, Woodrow, and Backenfield, Senators Rodriguez and Gardner, concerning clarifications to the requirements that the court conduct a bond hearing within 48 hours after an individual is placed in jail.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for the passage of all the bills on the second reading consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes House Bill 1157 and House Bill 1151 and the associated Judiciary Committee report.
Is there any discussion on the committee reports for the bills on the second reading consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the committee reports for the second reading bills on consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Majority Leader Moreno. No. Is there any discussion on the bills on the second reading of bills consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of the bills on the second reading consent calendar. Are there all those in favor say aye? Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report. The motion is adopted, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1157, House Bill 1151 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, Committee of the Whole report is adopted. House Bills 1157 and 1151 is amended, passed on second reading, order revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Will the clerk please add Senator Roberts to the roll? Or sorry, Senator Rodriguez.
I'm here.
This is one of you has to like change your name.
Rob.
The singular Robert, not the plural. General orders. Second reading of bills. Senator Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. And before we resolve, will the clerk please add Senator Mullica to the roll? Thanks for joining us this morning. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, and Senator Dillon will take the chair. You can.
Just so you're aware, so I'm going to prioritize
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 39.
Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 39? Do I need to take a vote on it? Okay. The motion is before the body is to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 39. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will proceed out of order for Senate Bill 39. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 39?
Senate Bill 39, Senator Buckner, Representative Amabile, concerning measures to reduce family separation caused by a parent's detention.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 23-039 and the Judiciary Committee Report and Appropriations Committee Report.
Thank you, Senator Buckner. To the Appropriations Committee, to the Judiciary Committee report.
Judiciary suggested that we amend the bill, which we did, and send it on to Appropriations.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report.
The Appropriation Committee acknowledged that this was a great bill and moved it on to the COW with amendments.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Buckner.
To the bill, I would like to present some second reading amendments. The first being L019.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L019?
Amendment L019 by Senator Buckner, amend printed bill, page 3, line 10, strike and page 3, line 15, strike communities and substitute communities and page 3 after line 15, insert F, the focus
Senator
of...
Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L019, I move L019, and this amendment adds some clarifying language to the legislative declaration so the children and their needs are clearly the focus and not the fact of the parent's incarceration. This was in response to concerns specific to Adams County and brought them from oppose to monitor. I'm asking for an aye vote on L019.
Is there any further discussion on L019? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L019. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L019 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Buckner.
Mr. Chair, I would like to add another amendment, L020.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L020?
Amendment L020 by Senator
Mr.
Buckner,
Chair.
Senator
amended...
Buckner.
Yes, L020. I move L020. Makes clear that a court may proceed with a hearing in a dependency and neglect case with a parent present in some circumstances without creating a due process violation and without creating a discrepancy in the rights of incarcerated parents and those parents who are not incarcerated. This met the needs of OCR, which is Office of Child's Representatives. So that is what we decided to do to make this acceptable.
Is there any further discussion on L020? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L020 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Buckner.
Mr. Chair, I have one last amendment, which is strictly a technical amendment, and I move L021.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L021?
Amendment L021 by Senator Buckner, amend printed bill...
Senator
Mr. Chair, I move L021. This is a technical cleanup amendment. is to clean up numbering and to clarify that capital T, capital R, capital A, capital I, capital L, capital S is an acronym.
Is there any
And it-
further discussion on L021? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L021. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L021 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Buckner.
To the bill. We started working on this bill back in July of 2022. Almost 1 in 4 parents in dependency and neglect cases will be incarcerated at some point during their cases. Children whose parents are incarcerated do better if they can maintain connections with their parents. And many parents who are incarcerated reunify with their children. This bill will help preserve family connections for children whose parents are incarcerated by the following: enhancing parental involvement, which ensures parents can show up for their children and be a part of their lives and important decisions when parents are separated from their families in dependency and neglect cases, even if they are incarcerated. It does this by granting the right to parents to appear and participate in dependency and neglect proceedings. And in Section 4, children were given this right through House Bill 22-138 last year. This bill is also going to improve communication procedures to ensure parents who are incarcerated are able to get access to virtual court hearings. Also, this bill provides the services and treatments needed to support their children and maintain connections during incarceration. In Sections 5 and 6 of this bill, you will see that we are going to be improving treatment planning for families to ensure that services designed to reunify and support the family are available and provided to parents who are incarcerated. Also, this includes parents and family engagement meetings, which are meetings held to plan for the family's future and ensure the family's needs are being met. Also, this bill provides in-person or virtual family time options for parents and children to remain connected unless the child's health or safety would be threatened by family time or there is a protection order. Also, where a parent has maintained a meaningful and safe relationship with their child during incarceration. Also requiring the court to consider permanency options that can maintain that connection. This bill is also important because it ensures that parent-child relationships are not severed based solely on incarceration. This eliminates long-term incarceration as a factor for finding no appropriate treatment plan or for finding a parent unfit and terminating parental rights. Also, in determining whether the parent has complied with a treatment plan, considers barriers caused by incarceration beyond the parent's control, parental rights should be terminated because a facility would not let a parent call the caseworker. It should be based on the needs of the family. This refocuses the decision on these needs, not the incarceration. Also, this bill improves practices within correctional facilities to ensure professionals helping the family have the information they need to help the family succeed, requiring coordination between the courts, facilities, and county departments of human services to ensure the facilities are aware when a parent is subject to a dependency and neglect case. This also mandates that DOC consider placing a parent subject to a DNN in a facility that allows for contact between the child and parent. Also ensures caseworkers know where parents are placed and what services are available to the parent in the facility. This also encourages DOC to increase contact opportunities for all parents in DOC facilities. This also enhances data collection and requires an annual report to encourage ongoing improvements in services and communication. I'm telling you all of this because, as I told you before, the stakeholding for this bill started in July, and with the amendments, we have no one opposed to this bill. And that is quite an accomplishment, but it is so necessary to make sure that all children who have someone incarcerated have the ability to keep that relationship with their family. What this bill does not do, it does not require contact between a parent and child if the contact is not safe or there is a protection order. This bill does not increase burdens on caseworkers. By improving communication with DOC, caseworkers can save time spent trying to locate and contact parents and spend that time engaging with parents. This bill does not alter other grounds for no appropriate treatment plan. A court can find that no appropriate treatment plan exists or that a parent is unfit if the child has a serious bodily injury or in other types of egregious cases. This bill does not delay permanency for parents, for children, by increasing communication and contact with parents who are incarcerated. Relatives or kin who may be available for placement can be identified early on. This bill does not alter timelines for permanency, but encourages permanency options to include ongoing opportunities for contact between parents and children, even if the parent remains incarcerated, because children do better when they can maintain their connections. I am asking for an aye vote on this important and crucial bill to ensure that families can still be connected even though they may be incarcerated. Thank you.
Further discussion. Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsor for bringing this. The intentions and the hopes and the best aspirations in this and what it might do in certain children's lives and parents' lives who are incarcerated could be wonderful, and we certainly hope that that would be the best outcomes. I just want to, as we kind of head into the budget week next week, we know that we are always in a competition for scarce resources. We know that money is hard to come by as we're trying to promote and support the various programs that we all believe in and we want to see advance. And just contextualize this sort of a bill with regard to that issue. From the fiscal note, the assumptions around this indicate that ultimately this will probably affect about 35 parents at a cost of $126,000 and 1.3 FTE. So the program has a purpose. The program, of course, has a counterbalancing cost. The assumptions sound like this. Of the 2,726 dependency and neglect cases filed per year, 25% of them will include parents who are incarcerated, or 691 parents. Of those 691 parents who are incarcerated, 25% of them currently do not participate in a hearing and could under the bill. So that's 173 individuals who could participate. Of those 173 parents, 40% of them, or 69 parents, are incarcerated in the Department of Corrections. And of those 69 parents within the DOC, half of them will choose not to participate in the dependency and neglect hearing, although this bill would provide for that, and we would hope for the best outcomes if they did participate. That leaves us to the place where we are serving with this bill an estimated 35 parents who are incarcerated and would participate in the hearings. We would hope for the best beneficial outcomes. And the net effect, the net cost to the state of Colorado for doing that is $3,600 per individual participating in such a hearing. So this is just a matter of contextualizing in the context, the broader context of budgets and the fact that we are competing for scarce resources and we need to make difficult choices as to where we will spend that money. And I urge you to vote your conscience on this bill in the context of all of the different things that we are competing for funding for with the budget of the state of Colorado. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the sponsors for bringing this bill. In committee, when we heard it, I had an initial concern, and again, I want to express my appreciation for one of the amendments. As I considered this bill, I wondered, is there any other nation, culture, society in the Western world, perhaps one or two, that would go to the lengths that we are going to here to preserve the parent-child relationship between an individual who's incarcerated? And make no mistake, you have to earn your way into the Department of Corrections today. It is not something that on a first offense or some bad set of circumstances you find yourself there. My concern was that this bill, as it was originally conceived, was a lot more about parents and not enough about children. So I appreciated the addition in L019 of this language that the focus of dependency and neglect cases should be the physical, mental, and emotional needs of the child, and accordingly, decisions to terminate parental rights should be based on the needs of the child and not solely on the status of the parent as incarcerated or the length of the sentence. That's really important that we keep this in mind, and so I appreciate that. The good and actually very best senator from Monument, of all the senators from Monument, he's the very best, makes a very excellent point here. When you do the numbers, we are spending a substantial amount of money to preserve this relationship for someone who's incarcerated. I'm a bit agnostic about that. I think you need to think really hard about that in our budget priorities. But we're doing this exercise because we do believe that the parent-child relationship and its preservation, even for those who've committed crimes, is really important. So I ask you to, more than anything else, to take a good hard look at this bill and ask yourself, is this the right expenditure? Is it the right value? Because while I can tell you in isolation it absolutely is, this is also something that will take money from Medicaid, from K-12, you name it. And so we make a lot of these little decisions for what seems like a little bit of money, but you know how it is, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money these days. Thank you.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the feedback from my colleagues and the good senator from Monument and also the good senator from Colorado Springs. I can't put a price on how important it is to keep families together. I have constituents who are incarcerated, and they are thrilled with the opportunity that they may be able to keep that relationship with their families while they are incarcerated. It's unfortunate that there is such a high percentage of children who have incarcerated parents who also, unfortunately, end up being incarcerated. That's a known fact. So the small amount of money that we're talking about for this fiscal note is worth every penny. The other thing that is really important to remember is the fact that we started negotiating on this bill back in July of last year, and we have no one opposed. So it seems to me that all of the other people who we stakeholdered with do not have an issue with the fiscal note. So I'm still asking for an aye vote for this piece of legislation.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first off, I want to thank the sponsor for bringing the bill. I think that I started digging into this bill yesterday and the day before yesterday, and really reading it and talking to her stakeholders and seeing the amount of work she's done on this bill. I think is admirable, and I think what she's wanting to do with this bill is extremely admirable. Members, we obviously have a criminal justice system, and we have a process for individuals to serve time if they break the law. You know, but there's often times that those individuals may have children, and you know, at the end of the day, those individuals, you know, one day are going to get out of jail or are going to be released. And our goal should be as a state is to make sure that once that debt is paid to society, that they're able to really get back into society and be able to succeed as a member of our society. And part of that is being a parent. And I think that what we're trying to do with this bill, and what I see the sponsor trying to do, is making sure that when that debt to society is paid, that we're building a foundation that when they come out, that they're able to hit the ground running, that they're able to have that relationship with their children. And that's an important relationship to have. And I think that when I started digging into this, I was really amazed, and you know, I think I was somewhat disappointed that we're not already doing this in our state, because I think it's so important to have those relationships and to make sure that these individuals have the opportunity to succeed once that debt is paid, and to have that relationship with their children, and to make sure that those children understand that that their parents are receiving help, and their parents are getting the resources they need to be better when they get out, and to be better parents, and to make sure that that relationship is there. And so, so to the sponsor, thank you very much for bringing this bill to their stakeholders. Thank you very much. I think it's extremely important. I'm an enthusiastic yes on this bill. I think that it should have been done long ago, but we're doing it today, and I think it's a huge step in the right direction.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members. I too want to rise in support of Senate Bill 39, and just applaud the good senator from Aurora's hard work on this bill. This is an example how we can help break the cycle of mental health issues and addiction issues. If you look at study after study, having connection with others is very important when it relates to mental health and how that feeds into addiction. So, and I'm not just talking about the mental health and addiction issues of those incarcerated. There are also mental health and addiction issues that crop up amongst children because of whatever situation at home, not necessarily related to their parent being incarcerated. But this is an example how we as a legislature can take positive steps to improve mental health of Coloradans, as well as dissuade addiction issues in the state. So I applaud the sponsor again on this, and I'll be an enthusiastic yes.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I did not hear this in committee, but I paid attention to the debate here this morning from the good senator from Aurora, and the way that I look at this, the old adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And the good senator, the best senator from Monument, was stated, he went over the numbers, and he boiled it down to about $3,500 per family. So I appreciate that, but kind of the way that I look at it, I've always been known as a tough on crime legislator, and I still am. But I think that in the context that if we can keep that family together, and when the family is able to communicate with each other before, during, and after incarceration, that $3,500 is well worth the investment. That if it down the road, if it keeps a child, teenager, whomever, out of prison down the road, because prison today, I know it keeps going up. The last time I heard, it was like roughly $80,000 a year to incarcerate somebody. So that $3,500 that we spend to keep the family together, where the parent says, "Hey, I made a mistake, and don't make the same mistakes as me, because I don't want to see you in prison 3 or 5 years from now because I didn't have that parental contact," and so forth and so on. So after listening to the debate on both sides, I will be supporting this bill, and I think it's a good, wise investment, and I commend the senator from Aurora for bringing the bill. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 39? Senator Buckner.
Thank you. Thank you to the good senator from Colorado Springs. That's really an important point. Keeping families together is what's crucial. I just want to give a couple more facts here before we close. Right now, would anyone like to guess how much we're spending a year to incarcerate individuals? I heard 42,000 over here. Any other bids? It is $55,000 a year to incarcerate. So this is a small price to pay for families to stay together, and I think we need to get our priorities in order when we do have these situations. The other thing I want to add is we need to be spending any extra money we have on our children. The number I gave you, about $55,000, that was for the fiscal year 21-22. We're now in 23, so I'm sure that has gone up. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is the fact that CCI and the sheriffs are neutral because we worked with them to make the bill something that they can easily implement no matter where someone is incarcerated. So I'm still asking for an aye vote on this important bill.
Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And colleagues, you might get the sense that I am foreshadowing coming discussions. The conversation we're having around preventive measures, I completely am on board with that, and I'll probably stand in this well in a few days and ask that we take a different look at the budget and fully fund public education. Because if we spend the $14,000 or $15,000 per student and we get a great outcome, we're less likely to end up spending that $55,000 to incarcerate someone. So it is, as I said in my opening comments, the best intentions of this bill and the best possible outcomes I am fully on board with. I simply want us all to constantly think about the priorities we are picking, the places where we are choosing to spend the money. And the bigger conversation isn't this $126,000, which equates to $3,600 per inmate being served. It's the conversation around how we're going to spend $40 billion with the state budget next week. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no further discussion on Senate Bill 39, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 39 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 39 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 67.
The motion is to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 67. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order to Senate Bill 67. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 67?
Senate Bill 67 with Senator Coleman concerning recidivism reduction program for persons sentenced to the Department of Corrections, facilitated by program participants in participation with Department of Corrections staff.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 67, the Judiciary Committee report, and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Judiciary Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judiciary Committee report ultimately was a strike below that changes the scope of the bill rather than simply focusing on a reimagine program that provides residents with the opportunity to lean into their own rehabilitation with the help of an individual who can support them in data collection, additional structure, incorporating the goals of similar resident-led creative programs at the facility, and strategies for scaling. Lastly, it was an amendment that amended the strike below. It required DLC to contract with a third party rather than DHS to satisfy the qualifications described in L001. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Hey!
All of those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Judiciary Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report, Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Appropriations Committee appropriated funds. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 67? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 67. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 67 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 149.
The motion is to proceed out of order for Senate Bill 159. All those in favor say aye. 149. Thank you. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order for Senate Bill 149. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 149?
Senate Bill 149, Senator Coleman, concerning the creation of a program to provide higher education financial assistance to students who perform youth mentorship.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 149 and the Appropriations Committee report and the Education Committee report. Appropriations?
Yes.
Just appropriations.
No, and education.
And Education
All
Committee
right.
report.
To the Education Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Appropriations Committee report brought back elements of the introduced bill and what originally garnered the support of constituents, advocacy groups, and Education Committee members, and we ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Education Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Education Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to making sure those original groups were added back into the bill, the Appropriations Committee report appropriated funds for this and also ensured that all dollars for this bill are used for scholarships rather than administration. We ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 149? Seeing none, Senator Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do have just one question for the bill sponsors. I'm curious about geographical diversity across this bill, how this would apply across the state, specifically concerned that we may not be giving the touch to rural Colorado that it deserves.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minority Leader, thank you for the question, and I want to say a special thank you to the Minority Leader. We had this bill in Education Committee. There was a concern about making sure that this bill impacted the whole state, not just particular areas of the state, because we recognize that our youth need mentorship, not only in Denver Metro, but rural parts of the state as well. And for that reason, we did run an amendment, as we shared in the committee report that we adopted, that made it so that this bill creates more guardrails around the selection of participants that are a part of this organization to help identify organizations across the state, universities across the state that ultimately will provide mentors for our students, which includes individuals with physical, mental, or developmental disabilities, individuals of color, justice-involved individuals, rural Colorado, urban Colorado, and more. So I just want to say a special thank you to the Minority Leader for asking for that, and we were able to carve that into the bill with an amendment and appropriations.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 149? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 149. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 149 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 72.
The motion is to proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 72. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order to Senate Bill 72. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 72?
Senate Bill 72, Senator Rodriguez, Representatives Epps and Soper, concerning the continuation of the Defense Council on First Appearance Grant Program and in connection therewith, implementing the recommendations in the 2022 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 72 and the Appropriations Report.
To the Appropriations Committee report.
In the appropriations, we appropriated the money to continue the grant for the program.
Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, this bill is a grant program that we're continuing on. It's basically if somebody gets charged with a sentence or incarceration, it requires the municipal court to appoint counsel to represent the defendant in the first appearance of court. The appointment of counsel must continue until the defendant is released from custody. A defendant who is released from custody may also apply for court-appointed counsel. If the defendant is indigent and faces incarceration, the court must appoint. This is a grant program for the municipalities and them to file for this. It's been going on since 2018. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 72? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 72. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 72 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 151.
The motion is to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 151. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 151?
Senate Bill 151, Senator Fields, Representatives Judah and Ortiz, concerning the continuation of the Health Equity Commission and in connection therewith, implementing the recommendation contained in the 2022 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Fields.
Mr. Chair, I move Senate Bill 151. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Members, this bill is just a sunset bill, and it continues the work of the Health Equity Commission. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 151? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 151. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 151 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee proceed out of order for consideration of Senate Bill 69.
The motion is to proceed out of order for the consideration of Senate Bill 69. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 69?
Senate Bill 69, Senators Henriksen and Will, concerning the requirements to operate a motorboat in this state.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 69 and the corresponding Transportation, Energy, and Finance Committee reports.
All right. To the Finance Committee report, or sorry, the Transportation and Energy Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Transportation and Energy Committee report, or in Transportation and Energy Committee, we amended the bill to get at some of the concerns that the Department of Natural Resources had and passed it over to Finance.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation and Energy Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Transportation and Energy Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the Transportation and Energy Committee report is adopted. To the Finance Committee report. Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the Finance Committee, the bill was further amended and reduced in scope, again with recommendations from the Colorado Department of Natural Resources.
Any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the Finance Committee made this a good bill, but it made it really a better bill, especially with the age requirements. At least in my estimation on this bill, it really made it a good bill for the requirements of 18 and under, and then allowing the 14-year-olds to operate a motorboat with safety training. So I think that was a really good situation for this bill.
Seeing no further discussion on the Finance Committee report, the motion is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Finance Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we have here now is a bill that takes an incremental step in ensuring furtherance of safety on our waters, our public waters. Last year was the deadliest year on record at Lake Pueblo. As more and more people flock to our state for the beautiful recreation and the quality of life that we offer here, more and more people are using our state lakes, and the injuries and deaths occurring continue to rise. And what this bill does is seeks to get a hold of that and ensure that people can enjoy our wonderful outdoors in a safe fashion so they can continue to do that their whole lives. And I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I mirror those comments. The amount of use that we're seeing on our state waters and boating recreation, this is much needed. We saw it in, I mentioned before, but we saw it in hunter education and the training that we've done. I see this happening the same thing with boater safety. And the other thing I want to mention is where it was amended out that it does not apply to private lake waters. So this is a good bill. I'd vote yes.
Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have a question that I think cuts to the heart of this bill. Evinrude, Johnson, or Mercury?
Does the sponsor want to answer the question for Senator Henriksen?
In true Colorado fashion, Mr. Chair, this bill is non-discriminatory, but I have to say that I am an Evinrude man.
All right, Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and maybe on a more serious note to the senator from Pueblo. I'm curious, how many organizations or companies offer these boating classes or safety classes that this bill is calling for?
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know the exact answer to that. I know that throughout the country there are over a dozen that offer courses that comply with varying state regulations. So I can get an exact answer for the senator on that, but I don't have a precise number at the moment.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I do think, I obviously don't question the intent of the bill. I do think that there is some concern with how many organizations or companies are actually offering this class, and if there's a potential that this bill only benefits one company in our state. I think that that's a concern that hopefully we can get an answer from the good senator from Pueblo soon. But I do want the body to be aware that if that's the case, then I have some serious concerns.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. DNR and CPW will be offering these classes just like they do with hunter education. There will be also some boating industry that does the classes as well. But I would say, and I don't have the fiscal note in front of me, but the bulk of that training will come from CPW state organization.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 69? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 69. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes still have it, and Senate Bill 69 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 53?
Senate Bill 53, Senator Kirkmeyer, concerning restrictions on non-disclosure agreements that affect government employees.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 53 and the committee report from the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee.
To the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report.
Thank you. The committee report, we had one amendment on the bill in committee. It passed out unanimously. Everyone was happy about it. It just made sure that personal identifying information is also kept confidential, and we added trade secrets and other confidential or sensitive information in the appropriate locations of the bill.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the SVMA committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have been holding on to this bill for a few weeks, and I know you were all wondering what has been taking so long for us to get to Senate Bill 53.
We can't tell you.
But I'm just going to say, I am pretty darn sure that when the Senate Majority Leader, the good senator from Commerce City, sent me a text this morning and said, "Are you good to go?" And I said, "Absolutely, because today is Barbara Kirkmeyer Day on the Senate floor." So that's what we waited for. And it's amazing because all the worlds have aligned and come together on this bill. This bill, Senate Bill 53, the Broadcasters Association loves it. The Press Association loves it. The Freedom of Information Act Association group, they love it. The ACLU, they like this bill. The AFL-CIO, they like this bill. So everyone's come together on Barbara Kirkmeyer Day. You gotta love it. Anyways, this bill is basically about banning non-disclosures both at the state and the local level, including counties, municipalities, and school districts. It has the fundamental interests of transparency and open government. This bill prohibits states, counties, cities and counties, municipalities, school districts, any of their departments, institutions, or agencies from making it a condition of employment that employees or prospective employee executes a contract or other form of agreement that prohibits, prevents, or otherwise restricts the employee or the prospective employee from disclosing factual circumstances concerning the individual's employment with the government. Members, over the course of the last few years, since 2019, there have been more than 80 settlement agreements with state employees totaling more than $4 million in taxpayer payouts. This is not transparent government, it's not open government, it's not accountable government. I can read you several instances. I don't know that I necessarily need to, but if we need to get into it, I will later. But there are several instances of where employees have been muzzled and have been required to sign non-disclosure agreements over misuse of public funds, over dispensing medications without supervisions, over enforcement actions against assisted living facilities where the result of political connections. This bill would stop those types of non-disclosure agreements. We've got a few amendments to go through, but it's a great bill. Again, it's about open, transparent, and accountable government and ensuring that our employees have the right to their First Amendment free speech in the Constitution and that we don't muzzle them. And here for the eye candy and a few words, the good senator from Denver.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the arm candy here on Senator Kirkmeyer Day.
No, it's the day.
It's the day. It's on your calendar. It's exciting to be here to be at this point. I applaud the senator's work on this bill. She had brought this a few years back, which it didn't pass the muster, and she brought it back with concerns answered. And you know, the federal government already doesn't allow non-disclosure agreements. This is good, transparent policy in government, and it lets us see when bad things are happening or money's getting wasted, or prevents money from being wasted. So please support this bill, and I think there's an amendment coming, but I'd like to defer to that.
All right, further discussion, Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, some of us are show horses and some of us are work horses. And to that end, I've got an amendment.
Yes, that's it. And I put some on the other side. Thank you.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L003?
Amendment L003
Senator
by Senator.
Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the workhorse show horses here, we move L003 to Senate Bill 53.
To the amendment. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an amendment that I'm grateful to the good senator from Weld County for working alongside me to bring, because this does reflect input from both labor and from the state. And this policy was really meant to ensure that NDAs are addressed. If we believe in a transparent government, if we believe in transparent local government and school boards and county governments, then we should support this bill. L003 is an amendment to ensure that, that those values are reflected in policy in a way that is workable.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just say this is a friendly amendment, obviously. I'm on it and agree 100% with what the good senator from Denver just spoke to. It has been honestly a pleasure to work with the good senator from Denver. It's been forthcoming, open. We've had great discussions, and this is a great amendment. Urgent aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on L003? Seeing none, the question is the adoption of L003. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L003 is adopted. Any further discussion on the bill? Senator Kirkmeyer. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read L004?
Amendment L004 by Senator Kirkmeyer.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L004.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment, again, was able to work with the municipal utilities who needed just a couple of changes, again, to the confidentiality or sensitive information. So it just follows on with the good work that I've been doing with the good senator from Denver, and I urge an aye vote.
Any further discussion on L004? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L004 is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read L005?
Amendment L005 by
Senator
Senator
Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is extremely important to me because this is me keeping my promise to the other good senator from Denver that said that I would work with folks to get amendments, if necessary, on this bill. And one of those folks was the governor's office. Myself and the other sponsor on this bill worked with the governor's office. We've met with them. We got information from them. And in the governor's office, they have what is called a confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement. And in reading through that agreement, it's really worth defining what is the scope of confidential information and what is important for the state to ensure that it's kept confidential. There's about 14 bullets that are within this non-disclosure agreement. I would say with this amendment, which adds on non-public and confidential labor relations positions and strategies, attorney work product, vendor lists and vendor preferences, state business-related information received from a third party that the third party has designated confidential. We will, with this amendment and the previous amendments, will cover everything in their non-disclosure agreement. And again, this amendment is extremely important to me because I made a promise in committee that when we got this out of committee that I would continue to work on amendments to this bill, and this is the amendment that makes sure I meet my promise. So urge an aye vote.
Further discussion on L005. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to express my my appreciation to the good senator from Greeley for bringing forward these amendments. You know, when we heard Senate Bill 53 in committee, we didn't hear hardly from anybody on this bill. And then the bill passed out, and all of a sudden we heard from everybody who suddenly had lots of concerns about this policy. And to me, it was a question of, well, why? One, why didn't we hear from y'all in committee? And two, why would you be concerned about a bill that furthers transparency? Can't tell you, turns out. I listened with great interest to the description from the good senator from Greeley about the non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements that she has described. And I trust that the amendment that she has put forward that we are now discussing is one that threads the needle in a thoughtful and nuanced manner. And for that reason, I encourage and I vote on this amendment.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is just to on our conversation of the amendment here. There were bullets flying just down the street at East High School. I would hope that they wouldn't be flying from this podium. So I please ask all of you to watch your language and be careful in what you say. Find that offensive and would wish that we move away from terms like that in the future. Thank you.
Further discussion on L005. Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L005. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L005 is adopted. Further discussion on the bill. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I just wanted to again acknowledge the good senator from Brighton for taking the time to really work on this bill. Once we passed it out of committee, she committed to doing the work. As she said, it's already been shared, but it really means a lot. There are times, sometimes we get accused of what's called fake holding, where we sit down and we have conversations, not really with the intent of actually coming to a consensus or a compromise. And I just want to say again, thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to even the governor's office who sat down. I'm not sure if the bill is perfect. I know it's in the first chamber. I know there's still work to be done. But I do know that we had intentional conversations to find a way to make sure this bill addresses the concerns when it comes to NDAs. And again, just want to make sure I publicly said thank you to the good senator from Brighton for honoring her commitment, taking the time to have the conversation. We delayed this, and this is the first chamber. Yeah, we did more work to get it to its best state, and if it has more to come back over, fine. But we have another chamber to go to, so I just want to make sure I acknowledge you publicly. Thank you.
Seeing no further, Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a couple of closing comments. This bill has been extremely important to me. I did start this 2 years ago, my first year being a state senator, and thought it was extremely important then. There were a lot of information that came my way. Had the opportunity to work with some other senators who said, if you come back with this, I'll help you out on that bill and I'll get on that bill. And so I do appreciate that as well from the good senator, the other good senator from Denver. You know, when it comes to government employees and the business of the state, the name of the game is truly transparency. We need to have transparent government and then accountable government. Even at a federal level, when President Trump tried to do NDAs, it was President Obama who said his ethics lawyers called them unethical and likely illegal. I agree 100% with that. Government employees have a First Amendment right to speak. They have a First Amendment right to trash their boss. Probably not the best idea to do, but they have that right to do that. And they should be able to speak out about wrongdoing that they see within the terms of their employment. So again, NDAs are about correcting what I think is bad public policy. So this bill will do that. NDAs send the wrong message. They send a message of secrecy and that you can't trust government and that we're trying to cover things up. So NDAs are suspect, and eventually, and especially if they occur when an employee is on their way out the door. So again, this bill is truly about making sure that we have open, transparent, and accountable government, and I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 53? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 53 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 53 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1126?
House Bill 1126, Representatives Ricks and Weinberg, Senator Exum, concerning the inclusion of certain items of information in consumer reports and in connection therewith prohibiting the reporting of medical debt information by consumer reporting agencies and prohibiting debt collectors and collection agencies from falsely representing that medical debt information will be included in a consumer report or failing to timely disclose that with certain exception medical debt will not be included in a consumer report.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1126.
To the bill.
Thank you. Before I get into the bill, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of amendments.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L008?
Amendment L008 by Senator X, and amend re-engross bill, page 3, strike lines 12 and 13, and substitute F, any other adverse item of information that predates the report by more than 7 years the consumer reporting agency knows or should know concerns debt, or page 4, line 9, strike
Senator
quote.
Exum.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two amendments today in response to feedback from the industry stakeholders. These amendments are a product of a thoughtful, thorough stakeholder process that has spanned over 7 weeks. I'm sorry, I move Amendment L008. And last week, my colleagues in the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee heard concerns about implementation from representatives of consumer reporting industry, the debt buyer industry, the banking industry. Since then, we have honored our commitment to work with these stakeholders. These amendments are a reflection of that work, and they resolve all the stakeholders' concerns without sacrificing important protection of Colorado families. What Amendment L008 does, it does two things to address compliance-related concerns raised by the industry stakeholders. First, it clarifies that credit bureaus are only responsible for keeping medical debt trade lines off Coloradans' credit reports when they know that the debt is a medical debt. Second, it clarifies that the prohibition on misleading consumers about credit reporting on medical debt pertains to instances when debt collectors and collection agencies are collecting on debt they know is medical debt. And ask for an aye vote on Amendment L008. Thank you.
Discussion on L008. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, I sit on the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee, and we heard this bill last week, I believe, or the week before, and there was good discussion about this medical debt. We're all concerned about consumers paying their bills and the way things are reported with the various consumer reporting agencies. And I want to commend the sponsor for working with us, working with the consumer reporting agencies of how this medical debt is accounted for and how it's paid for. I got a verbal promise from him that he would work with the groups, and apparently he has. So I too would urge an aye vote on L008 because he stayed true to his word. Thank you.
Any further discussion on L008? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L008. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. L008 is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L009?
Amendment L009 by Senator Exum, amend re-engross bill, page 3, line 5, strike medications and substitute drugs. Medical debt does not include debt charged to a credit card unless the credit card is issued under an open-ended
Senator
or closed.
Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L009.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Amendment L009 amends the definition of medical debt used in this bill to further address concerns raised during the committee hearing last week. Industry representatives raised concerns that the unamended definition of medical debt would effectively prohibit credit reporting on general credit cards usage that included charges for medical goods and services that were commingled with other types of charges. This amendment ensures that the definition of medical debt does not include general credit cards where charges for medical goods and services are commingled with others. Non-medical charges, just like the definition of medical debt in Senate Bill 93, as amended does. However, unlike the definition of medical debt in Senate Bill 93, the amended definition of medical debt in this bill would exclude specially financed products that are offered to pay the medical goods and services by ensuring specialty finance products that are offered to finance medical goods and services that are excluded from the definition of credit card. This amended definition treats medical debts that are financed through a third party the same as medical debts that are accounts owed to goods or services provided, and ask for an aye vote on Amendment L009.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, as I said, we had a good discussion about House Bill 1126. And, you know, just to kind of frame it a little bit, when we get our credit card statements, it says there, you know, that you charge so much to this restaurant or so much to a retail store or so forth. But it's rather confusing about medical debt. You know, it just says doctor's visit. It doesn't get into specifics. And what this amendment L009 does is clarify that in case you don't know, when you go to a doctor's office, sometimes they have a unique special type of credit card. It's called Care Credit, I think, and there's probably other names and so forth. And that type of debt is medical debt, and it's used specifically for you to be able to pay your medical debt versus having a medical debt on a credit card where the reporting agencies don't know, you know, if it's truly medical debt or not. So this just clarifies that these specialty types of health credit cards, that can be used and disclosed for the payment of the healthcare services. So once again, the sponsor of this bill has stayed true to his word, and so I would urge an aye vote on L009. Thank you.
Any further discussion on L009? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L009. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L009 is adopted. To the bill, Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I get started, I want to thank the good senator from Colorado Springs, just adjacent to my district, for his words on the amendments. And I also want to thank the chair of the committee, the majority leaders, and all the proponents of this bill, including those that have some issues with the bill. And my commitment is to continue working on this, and we may have a third reading amendment when we get there. But the bill, medical debt is not something most people acquire by choice. No one chooses to get sick or get stuck with $30,000 medical bill. No one chooses to get into an accident or get hurt or get stuck with a debt. And yet that debt and having it shows on their credit report can prevent people from getting a good wheelchair accessible apartment that they need, which would prevent them from getting a new van to take them to doctor's appointments. And medical debt is not all a measure of a person's credit worthiness, and yet it's included in a person's credit report. That's why I'm happy to be presenting this bill to you today. 1 in 8 Coloradans have medical debt, over 700,000 people statewide. Currently, when someone cannot afford a medical expense on their bill is sent to collections, that debt, medical debt, may be included on their credit report. That in turn can harm a person's credit score. Banks, landlords, and even some employers use credit reports and credit scores when making decisions about consumers. As a result, people with medical debt experience barriers whenever credit report and credit scores are used. But medical debt is a bad predictor of a person's credit worthiness. Data shows that people with medical debt make on-time payments at significant higher rates than their credit score suggests. Credit reporting on medical debt exacerbates inequities. It marginalizes a lot of different communities, and medical debt on credit reports create barriers for people trying to get a mortgage, car loans, small business loans, renting houses, insurance, utilities, and employment. And again, the reason behind this bill is not to excuse the medical debt. The people are still responsible for that medical debt. It's just not be reported on their credit report, and ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the sponsor, my ranking member on the other side, for the work they did, and the opponents and the proponents on this bill for coming together to come to the amendment. I think everybody's in a good place on this bill. This is important policy. You know, this medical debt, we completely complain about rising healthcare costs. This shouldn't ban anybody from anything else in their lives, as we know. And this doesn't stop the debt from happening. So ask and I vote, and I just want to acknowledge the sponsors and the proponents and the amends that they all came together and got this fixed. And I think everybody's in a good place. So thank you for the work.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. We've had a good discussion here about House Bill 1126. And I want to commend the sponsor for bringing this bill as one who speaks from experience, who's had medical debt, or had it. You know, I think it's important, and I realize that medical debt can be expensive. You can go from 0 to 5,000 or 0 to 10,000 real quick. But it is a debt, and I personally, I was glad to pay my medical debt because I appreciate the good work that the healthcare professionals do. And I can attest to the fact that if you have medical debt, it's not something that people should just blow off just because they think, well, doctors are rich or the hospitals are rich, and you know that they're not going to miss my $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it may be. I can definitely attest to the fact that the hospitals and the doctors and the clinics, they will work with you on this medical debt. It's not like you have to pay it off within that first 30 days. They will bend over backwards to work with you. And I think it's important, and you shouldn't ultimately be dinged on your credit because you have medical debt, especially if you will work with the creditors. So I commend the sponsor. Thank him for bringing this. Vote your conscience on the bill, and it's good that we're moving forward addressing this medical debt issue. Thank you.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I renew my motion for adoption of a House Bill 1126, I want to pause because this is a moment in time where two senators from Colorado Springs on different sides of the aisle agree on something. So remember that. History in the making. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And with that, is there the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1126. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. House Bill 1126 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1117?
House Bill 1117, Representatives Judah and Garcia, Senators Gonzalez and Hinrichsen, concerning requirements for affidavits of support related to eligibility for public benefits in Colorado.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We move House Bill 1117 on second reading. Ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1117. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1117 is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar to tomorrow, Friday, March 24th.
The motion is to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow, March 24th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the balance of the calendar is laid over to tomorrow. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 39 is amended, Senate Bill 67 as amended, Senate Bill 149 is amended, Senate Bill 72 is amended, Senate Bill 151, Senate Bill 69 is amended, Senate Bill 53 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered, engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1126 is amended, House Bill 1117 passed on second reading and ordered, revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bills 1219 and 1025 laid over until March 24, 2023, and retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Oh, it's fine. Senate Bill 39 is amended, Senate Bill 67 is amended, Senate Bill 149 is amended, Senate Bill 72 is amended, Senate Bill 151 and 69 is amended, Senate Bill 53 is amended, passed on second reading, order, engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bills 1126 is amended and 1117 passed on second reading. In order to revise and place on the calendar for third reading and final passage, House Bills 1219 and 1025 laid over until March 24th and retaining their place on the calendar. Will the clerk please mark Senator Cutter as excused? Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Board of Trustees for the University of Northern Colorado, effective January 1st, 2023, for terms expiring December 31st, 2026. Stephen Moreland Jordan, PhD of Lafayette, Colorado, reappointed. Greg Anton of Denver, Colorado, appointed.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments on the consent calendar, which includes the members of the Board of Trustees for the University of Northern Colorado.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the confirmation of all of the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Consideration of conference committee reports. Will the clerk please read the title of House Bill 1101?
Senate Bill 1101, Representatives V. Hill and Bacon, Senators Winter F. and Hendrickson, concerning support for transit and in connection therewith, increasing the flexibility of the Ozone Season Transit Grant Program and increasing opportunities for transit agency participation in regional transportation planning.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adopt the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1101.
Is there any discussion? Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate reject the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1101, dissolve the conference committee, and that a second conference committee be appointed.
Senator Kirkmeyer, can you explain the reason for
Yes.
the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. And first of all, I just have to say I appreciate that we were able to have a conference committee and that there was an amendment that was brought forward to try and fix the amendment that was put on in the original committee. I still have a couple of points of consternation with it. When the original amendment was put on the bill, it really just appeared that the Department of Transportation and their executive director was trying to work to stifle the voice of rural Colorado when it comes to transportation. I was assured in the conference committee that that was not the point, but I still, again, have a couple of problems with the amendment that was put on in conference committee. And I will read what essentially the part of the amendment that I don't care for and I think is still working against rural Colorado and their voice on transportation. Essentially, what this amendment says is that the study must include consideration of the boundaries of the transportation planning regions and the equitable representation of the transportation planning regions on the Transportation Advisory Committee. And then at the very end, it says that the commission shall initiate updates to the rules. So here's my issue. First of all, the First Amendment, the amendment that was brought forward in the conference committee, everything in these amendments can already be done. I appreciate that the conference committee amendment, moves the whole thing to a study that the Department of Transportation will do, the executive director. But the reality is this: the statute already allows for the Transportation Commission to do a study on anything they deem necessary, essentially. The Transportation Commission can already study the boundaries, and they already have rules in place. Furthermore, there are intergovernmental agreements in place between counties and the Department of Transportation and the Commission that sets the transportation boundaries. So they can't supersede that with a statute. And furthermore, the Transportation Commission, the transportation boundaries have already been, they've been discussed for 30 years. The metropolitan planning organizations already have to make changes every 10 years based on the census and population trends. The transportation planning regions already have to be determined based on highway and transit corridors and existing and planned transit district boundaries. They already talk about, transportation plans already talk about disproportionately impacted communities, vehicle miles traveled, transit vehicle revenue miles and lane miles, truck vehicle miles traveled, safety and management considerations, commuting, commercial traffic, tourism, freight, all of this, transit-oriented development. Every transportation plan has all of these things and even have to be conforming to air quality. This amendment, like the original amendment, this amendment that was passed in the conference, like the original amendment, are not necessary, and they are not needed. And they were not stakeholdered, but more importantly, the department knows better, and they should have been talking with the STAC, the State Transportation Advisory Committee. It's required by law that they talk with STAC. They didn't talk with the Transportation Commission with regard to these amendments, either amendment. The amendment in the original bill, the amendment in the conference committee, yet the amendments are still being brought forward. And it really is this language that, after talking to members who are still on the State Transportation Advisory Committee, this language about equitable representation of transportation planning regions. Nobody really knows what that means, but for your information, transportation planning regions are made up of county commissioners, municipal leaders, and transit agencies. And if you're in the southwest corner of our state, in that transportation region, the Ute, Mountain Ute, and the Southern Ute tribes are also included. So they have been inclusive since 1993, quite frankly. This amendment's not necessary, but this equitable language in this bill still leaves me to believe, and members of the State Transportation Advisory Committee to believe, that they are working to lessen the vote of the rural transportation planning regions and thereby lessening and silencing as best as they can the voice of rural Colorado when it comes to transportation. Therefore, I ask again that we dissolve the conference committee and that a second conference committee be appointed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to concur with the good senator from Brighton on the comments that she made. I did have a conversation with our Transportation Commission member that lives in Grand Junction, and she was horrified that they were not even contacted about this bill, and since they're not contacted about the bill, didn't know about the amendment, because this is going to drastically hurt rural Colorado. Our Grand Junction Chamber of Commerce is absolutely opposed to the amendment and the bill. although they wanted to thank the sponsors for taking time to at least listen during the conference committee. But further discussions around proposed language for a new Section 3, known as a study amendment, brings forth additional important conversations. According to the Grand Junction Chamber, they are encouraged to see a process that will include the gathering of data and stakeholders to ensure all of Colorado is properly represented in future discussions around CDOT projects, priorities, and funding. But they continue to ask, why is it included in this bill, which is focused on increasing the flexibility of the ozone season transit grant program? A study that has the potential to redefine transportation planning regions and the equitable and proportional representation of the Transportation Advisory Committee deserves much more conversation than being added as a last-minute amendment. The impact this study will have on the future infrastructure within our state dictates that it be introduced as its own bill and given careful, focused consideration as such. Furthermore, the proposed new section is dangerously close to violating Article 5, Section 21 and 17 of the Colorado Constitution. The original title of HB 23-1101 did not clearly express the study or subsequent intention to redistribute representation related to the Transportation Planning Commission, showing that the proposed amendments alter the original purpose of this bill. I ask for a new conference committee report.
Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a former member of the Eastern TPR, I want to, my concerns are this equitable representation on the stack. What worries me is it takes away rural Colorado's voice, and could it possibly be weighted voting if they go with population? Because we need a voice. It is hard enough for us to get our roads and bridges fixed in the Eastern TPR, and we don't need to be fighting any more than we already do to get the money for our Eastern TPR. So thank you. I request another conference committee, please.
Senator Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it is important to me that we protect the voices of rural Colorado. And in efforts to do so, we stripped all language in the bill dealing with proportionality because of concerns that could be read to reduce the number of rural transportation planning regions based on their populations. That's not the intent. Further, I want to direct your attention to Section 2 of the Conference Committee report. The department shall not include any recommendation in the study report that, if adopted, would reduce the number of rural transportation planning regions, which shall be maintained at the maximum number specified in Section 43-1-1102. I ask for the adoption of the Conference Committee report and the repassage of the bill.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you. And thank you to the good senator from Pueblo. Appreciate you talking about Section 2. And that's fine. Don't have a disagreement with Section 2. It's in Section 1 and Section 3. And when you combine them together, what it could mean for the voice of rural Colorado when it comes to transportation. And the good senator from Pueblo should probably also be concerned about the small MPO called Pueblo. Pueblo is a small metropolitan planning organization that has a member on this board as well, on the State Transportation Advisory Committee as well. And when you put in words like the equitable representation of the transportation planning regions on the Transportation Advisory Committee, and then you say the commission shall initiate updates to the rules concerning the statewide transportation planning process and the transportation planning regions, you can best bet that the executive director of the Department of Transportation is trying to figure out a way to lessen the vote of rural Colorado and even the smaller metropolitan planning organizations, such as in Pueblo, as in Mesa, and as the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization. They're either going to work to lessen the vote or put in a weighted voting mechanism, which will hurt rural Colorado, which will hurt those small MPOs. I know because I sat on the stack for 20 years, I chaired it for 8 years, and every opportunity that they had, the larger MPOs would always try to outvote or outwork with department the rest of the State Transportation Advisory Committee. This is important. If they would have taken out, if we would have taken out equitable, we did take out proportional in the amendment that was introduced at the conference committee, which was good. But if they would have taken out equitable, I wouldn't need to be here. So again, I urge you to dissolve the first conference committee and that a second conference committee be appointed. Thank you.
The motion is to reject the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1101, dissolve the first conference committee and appoint a second conference committee. Are there any no votes? Senators Gonzalez, Majority Leader Moreno, Kolker, Jaquez Lewis, Marchman, Exum, Winter, Henriksen, Sullivan, Priola, Buckner, Fields, Coleman, Danielson, Hanson, please add the president. With a vote of members, the computer is telling me that there are 0 aye votes, which is not accurate. So we're just going to hold tight for 1 second as we figure out what the computer's doing. Okay, members, we are going to reopen that vote. So everyone is clear, the motion is to reject the first report of the first conference committee on 1101, dissolve the first conference committee and appoint a second conference committee, and we are asking for no votes on that motion. Are there any no votes? Senators Winter, Exum, Coleman, Hanson, Majority Leader Moreno, Gonzalez, Danielson, Kolker, Priola, Fields, Henriksen, Buckner, Sullivan, Marchman, Jaquez Lewis. I got you. Bridges. Please add the president. With a vote of 17 ayes, 17 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, that motion fails. We are back to consideration of the conference committee report on House Bill 1101. Is there any further discussion? Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. In response urge rejection of the conference committee report. The challenge we have here, folks, is so much of what we do is rooted in this concept of one person, one vote. It's the American way. It's what we believe, it's what we live out, it's what happens. But the reality is the correlation doesn't fall exactly the same to 1 cubic foot of concrete or 1 cubic foot of asphalt per the area where the votes are. We have a broad transportation network across a huge state. It's part of interstate commerce, and the big trucks that roll across our roadways have an impact on those roadways. And making sure that we acknowledge that the disparate and far corners of our state are appropriately funded with regard to the transportation infrastructure, and that means roads and bridges, is critically important. We're deeply concerned that the way this is moving forward, the language in that bill, although amended by the conference committee report to make it somewhat more palatable, still sits on the tongue as if it were acid or salt or something completely unpalatable and inappropriate for our transportation needs in the state of Colorado. So I urge your rejection of the conference committee report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to be clear about what we're voting on. This sends it to a study to decide if the way TPRs are drawn is appropriate. It's only a study. We have specifically called out that the voice of rural Colorado will not be diminished. Absolutely not be diminished. This body has stood up time and time again and said, in transportation funding, we believe in road safety. We believe in funding roads and bridges. And in 260, we said we believe in addressing climate goals. We are out of attainment for ozone over and over and over and over again, to the point where our residents are getting ozone notifications on a daily basis. So to say that this process is working and that the transportation planning is addressing our climate isn't true. This is also about promoting transit, and that's not against rural Colorado. We have 62 transit agencies that represent rural Colorado in this state. We have more rural public transit than any other state in the country. We specifically called out and said, there shall not be a diminishment of rural Colorado voices, and we want to make sure that we are addressing all our transportation goals, including lane miles, including vehicle miles traveled, including public transit, including climate goals. This is about a check-in on our system of representation to ensure that we are meeting all of our goals. This is a study. This is not diminishing the voice of rural Colorado.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. President. Let's talk about what we really are doing here today. In 1992, a bill was passed by then Senator Norma Anderson that took the Department of Highways and made it the Department of Transportation. And in that bill, it required that we as a state develop, for the first time ever, a 20-year multimodal transportation plan that included everything, and that we had the ability to define up to 15 transportation planning regions, 10 of which are considered rural, 5 of which are the Metropolitan Planning Organization boundaries. Metropolitan Planning Organization boundaries are based on population, and it's based on rules and regulations from the Federal Transit Agency. The transportation plans, the first one ever statewide transportation plan, was adopted in 1995. It was a multimodal plan that required every transportation planning region in this state, including the 10 transportation planning regions that are considered rural, to have transit in their plan, to consider transit-oriented development and access in their plans, to consider freight movement in their plans. All of the metropolitan planning organizations and portions of certain rural transportation planning regions, like the Upper Front Range, and other rural transportation planning regions, like in our northwest corner, in our southwest corner of the state, all have to have air quality conforming plans. All of them. So since 1993, when we started this process and started putting together our regional transportation plans that have to be by statute rolled up into the statewide multimodal transportation plan, all have to consider air quality. All have to consider transit. Senate Bill 260 did nothing new to require that transportation planning regions have to do this. It was in place. The fact that we have air quality issues is in relation to the population and the number of people, more people, that we have driving on our highways. It has nothing to do with the planning. I know they're going to lay it over. I'm still going to make my point today. I understand we're going to lay this over because we can all count votes. But here's what's wrong, and here's what we should be talking about today. It is this section, the equitable and proportional representation of the transportation planning regions on the State Transportation Advisory Committee. And this portion of the section that says the commission shall initiate updates to its rules. Shall initiate. So they are going to come back with how to stifle the voice of rural Colorado on transportation in this state. After, for the last 30 years, we have spent working on this across the state, gaining stakeholder input from numerous groups, not just transit agencies, but from numerous groups. Groups that represent folks with disabilities, groups that represent the elderly, groups that represent agriculture and freight movement and commercial movement, to put together a 20-year multimodal plan and a 10-year development plan to move projects forward that include transit, even though transit is not a mode of transportation. Or, I'm sorry, it is a mode of transportation. It is not the infrastructure that is needed for that mode of transportation. So this is about trying to lessen the voice of rural Colorado on transportation, because the executive director of the Department of Transportation, who is appointed by the governor, and her staff thought it was a great idea to sneak an amendment into a bill that no one was really that aware of until the good senator from Routt County came forward and pointed out the issue with it, that again would work to silence the voice of transportation, because it would have been based, the boundaries would have had to have been based on population. So they would have silenced or tried to squelch the voice of rural Colorado. That is what we're voting on here today, and that is what's wrong with this amendment. The department should know better. The executive director should have known better. She should have, by statute, had this conversation with the State Transportation Advisory Committee. It's required that they get to make comments on all things transportation planning. She should have had this discussion and this conversation with the Transportation Commission, the Transportation Commission of a Type 1 agency. She did not do that either. So I am not the only one who is upset over this. You've got 17 staff members, or maybe 16 if you dismiss Dr. Cog, that are upset that she didn't bother to go through the process and use the State Transportation Advisory Committee. And you have several transportation commissioners who are upset with this as well, because the executive director thought she would sneak one by them. That's the problem with this. amendment that was added on in conference committee. It's the problem that was what was added on in the committee of reference to begin with. There's no reason for it. There is no need for it. The commission can study it. They can change boundaries. They can work with staff members. They can work with the TPRs and the MPOs to change the boundaries. Instead, we are trying to circumvent statute here so that we can squash and silence rural Colorado when it comes to transportation. That's what's going on.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over the consideration of the conference committee report on House Bill 1101 until Monday, March 27th.
The motion is to lay over consideration of the conference committee report on House Bill 1101 until Monday, March 27th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Consideration of conference committee reports on House Bill 1101 will be laid over until Monday. In response to a request from the House, that cute little chamber down the hall, for a conference committee on House Bill 1011, the Senate conferees are Senators Marchman, Chair, Hendrickson, and Simpson on the first conference committee on House Bill 1011. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that the conference committee on HB 1011 be given permission to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two houses.
The motion before the body is to grant permission to the conferees on the first conference committee on House Bill 1011 to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two houses. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and permission is granted. Committee reports.
March 22nd, 2023, the Committee on Judiciary, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 157 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation.
Message from the House.
March 23rd, 2023, Mr. President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the Reviser of Statutes House Bills 1181 and 1204, amended as printed in House Journal. March 22nd, 2023, the House has passed on third reading and returned herewith Senate Bills 110 and 52. The Speaker has appointed Representative Snyder, Chair, Byrd, and Soper as House conferees on the first conference committee on Senate Bill 90.
Announcements. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Senate State Veteran Military Affairs Committee will be meeting later on today at 1:30 in the Old Supreme Court. Here, SJM 23004, as well as House Bill 231185.
Senator Hawkins-Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to take a moment to recognize an incredible group of 50 future leaders in the gallery this morning. They are fourth graders from Alicia Sanchez Elementary School in Lafayette. Oh, no, don't make noise. Don't make noise, just quietly. So folks, their amazing teacher, Adam Maroon, has brought all of these students. They are studying the Capitol. They are in a social studies unit about the power of youth. And this will help students recognize the differences that they can make in their community. They're learning about laws and how they're created, how they'll be able to vote for laws, and even have elections for their fourth grade mayor and judge. So if we as senators can all give a wonderful wave to our future leaders in Colorado. Yay, thank you.
Senator Hawkins-Lewis, how many children do you think are here today?
Don't tell him, he's going to find you that.
How many are here today?
Oh, I don't think I'm supposed to tell you that.
Senator Hawkins Lewis will be fined 20 cents per child for violating the rules of the Senate and acknowledging and introducing folks in the gallery. So I'll let you decide how to calculate that. We do round up in the Senate. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, members, today is a great day. You all are invited to a steak fry at 6 p.m. tonight, and it's all being put on by the Logan County Cattlewomen. They are coming down to help show you the fruits of our labor and agriculture, and we would love to have all of you join us for the steak fry, and they're going to talk a little bit about what we do in northeastern Colorado when it comes to agriculture. So thank you very much.
Further announcements.
Go ahead.
Senator Hawkins Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought I'd try for another fine.
No.
This is an announcement on Senate Local Government and Housing. We'll be meeting upon adjournment at, say, 11:30. I think that gives us enough time. 11:30, we'll be hearing Senate Bill 183 and House Bill 1099.
Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I have some student leaders and their chaperone here from Harrison School District 2, also some folks from the League of Women Voters. Mr. Woody Longmire, would you stand up? Mr. Orion, Mr. Harris, Mr. Eric, and Mr. Rubin, and Mr. OG, and Miss Liz, and Miss Merle, all from Harrison School District 2. Please welcome them to the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I have conferred with the Majority Leader and the President, and I have asked to be excused tomorrow, March 24th.
Senator Zenzinger will be marked as excused tomorrow. Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President, colleagues. Let's see, the Senate Health and Human Services Committee will be meeting this afternoon at 1:30, and we have several bills up, and we'll be meeting in Senate Committee Room 357.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, we are meeting at 1:30 or whenever local government is completed. So stand by. We have 4 bills on the calendar in room 352.
Further announcements. Message from the House.
Message from the House. March 23rd, 2023. Mr. President, the House has voted not to concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 1030 and request that a conference committee be appointed. The bill is transmitted herewith.
Further announcements. Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President. Again, I'd like to ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. Members, not quite sure if you're aware, but we have several students that are here from East High School. And I just want to let them know that you're always welcome in this house. The state capitol is the people's house. It's important that we hear from young people about the concerns that they have, about the issues that you're dealing with. We want to hear from you. We want to know what those issues are so that we can take the appropriate action. But again, I just want to say, welcome to the state capitol. This is your house.
Further announcements. Message from the reviser.
March 23rd, 2023. We herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bills 1181 and 1204.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing no further announcements, I move that the Senate adjourn until tomorrow, Friday, March 24th.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will adjourn until 9 a.m. Friday, March 24th.